thank God for those who pressed their way through and came out to help support and to participate in our Bible study. All right, so you know where you are. You're at the right place at the right time. Normally, you'll see a table behind me and two chairs. So Pastor Noodle's not here today, so I figure why sit by myself? I'm going to stand, and we're going to have our Bible study together. All right, everybody? So, we're taking a methodical approach of reading the Bible. We're still in Genesis, by the way, and we're finding there's so much nuggets and information. It's so rich when you take the time out to read the Bible chapter by chapter. And we're not necessarily coming from a theological standpoint, even though theology, this is the study of God. But, you know, we're actually just looking to see what was happening at that particular time and see what we can glean from it. All right? So we're not going to be talking about the second coming of Christ or all of these various different things. But we're just going to be here to see what's in the Bible, and we're going to pull it out and read it, and we're going to get some good understanding. Again, thank God for everyone who made it. Don't forget, there's three things that you have to do, right? All right, so there's three things that you have to do. You have to like, you have to comment, and you have to share. So if you're on any of our platforms, if you're on Facebook, if you're on YouTube, or the church's website, please make sure that we like, we comment, and we share so others can be able to receive from this as well. All right? Let me just check one thing out with the mic. How we doing? Is the volume better? Kenny? Is the volume better? Okay. All right. Very good. All right. Awesome. Very good. So, just a quick recap. Last week, it was very interesting the things that we read in Genesis 29 and chapter 30. We read how Jacob worked for his wife Rachel, and who did he get? He got Leah instead, right? And then he worked 7 years thinking that he was getting Rachel, and he got Leah instead. And then he had to work 7 more years to get Rachel. And then there was some type of family dynamic, some family war in between Leah and Rachel, because Leah wanted Jacob's heart, but his heart was really for Rachel. So Rachel couldn't have any children. Leah did, and so Leah just kept having children, trying to win the heart of Jacob. Did that happen? No. He didn't hate her, but she didn't have his heart like how Rachel did. And then so the dynamic got even more intense. Rachel was like, so my servant, have children with my servant. And Jacob said, okay. And he started having children with her servant. And then Leah's like, oh, so that's what you want to do? Well, now you can have children with my servants also. Almost like a soap opera. But this is the things that happen literally in people's life. And I'm so happy that the Bible didn't leave that out. Right? Because it shows you how we are imperfect and how much we need God's grace in our lives. Amen? And I'm so glad that the Bible didn't leave these things out. So I'm happy about that part so we can get some good understanding. And so we can also learn what not to do. That's very important. So we need to learn to, men, love our wives. 2, we need to love our children and love your one wife. One wife, right? Yeah. Love your one wife. And we need to love our children because we're going to read and we're going to see how there was some turmoil in the life of Jacob with his children as we go further, just because of this whole family dynamic that went awry. All right? So now we're in chapter 31, and we're going to read, and then we're going to go into some comments and see what we can extrapolate from this, all right? So I'm reading again Genesis 31 from the NLT. Here we go. But Jacob soon learned that Laban's sons were grumbling about him. Jacob has robbed our father of everything, they said. He has gained all his wealth at our father's expense. And Jacob began to notice a change in Laban's attitude toward him. Then the Lord said to Jacob, return to the land of your father and grandfather and to your relative there, and I will be with you. So Jacob called Rachel and Leah out to the field where he was watching his flocks. He said to them, I have noticed that your father's attitude toward me has changed, but the God of my father has been with me. You know how hard I have worked for your father, but he has cheated me, changing my wages 10 times, but God has not allowed him to do me any harm. For if he said, the speckled animals will be your wages, the whole flock began to produce speckled young. And when he had changed his mind and said, the striped animals will be your wages, then the whole flock produced striped young. In this way, God has taken your father's animal and given them to me. One time during the mating season, I had a dream and saw that the male goats mating with the females were streaked, speckled, and spotted. Then in my dream, the angel of God said to me, Jacob. And I replied, yes, here I am. The angel said, look up, and you will see that only the streaked, speckled, and spotted males are mating with the females of your flock. For I have seen how Laban has treated you. I am the God who appeared to you at Bethel, the place where you anointed the pillar of stone and made your vow to me. Now get ready and leave this country and return to the land of your birth. Rachel and Leah responded, that's fine with us. We won't inherit any of our father's wealth anyway. He has reduced our rights to those of foreign women. And after he sold us, he wasted the money you paid him for us. All the wealth God has given you from our father legally belongs to us and our children. So go ahead and do whatever God has told you. So Jacob put his wives and children on camels, and he drove all his livestock in front of him. He packed all the belongings he had acquired in Paddan Aram, and set out for the land of Canaan, where his father Isaac lived. At the time they left, Laban was some distance away, shearing his sheep. Rachel stole her father's household idols and took them with her. Jacob outwitted Laban, the Aramean, for they set out secretly and never told Laban. They were leaving. So Jacob took all his possessions with him and crossed the Euphrates River, heading for the hill country of Gilead. Let's stop there and just kind of discuss that for a few minutes, because it's a lot of verses here. So, again, I love the truth and the history of what the Bible is saying here. Anything stick out in these first 20 verses that we want to discuss, or those online, you can put it in a chat and we can comment to it. What do you see happening here in these first 20 verses? Let's play with that for a few minutes. Anything jump out? Nothing that's no? Well, so we see that Jacob is planning on going back home. And the reason why he's going back home is because he see how Laban is doing the family thing, right? Laban, Jacob, Rebecca, his mother, they have this thing that they like to do with people, and it's called trickery. They like to trick people, and they like to, take things that don't really belong to them, right? So Laban was doing that with Jacob. Jacob said, he did this to me 10 times. He kept switching every agreement and every agreement that we make. he would switch it on him 10 times, right? So Jacob was like, yeah, it's time to go. And he also received a word from the Lord and telling him, I'm with you, you can go now. Now, something to me stuck out for, that I was shocked that Rachel and Leah said. You guys see that part? What do you think about what Rachel and Leah said about how the father was treating them as well? Say that one more time, please. Laban, you mean? Yeah. Right. So yeah. So good point. Thank you, sis. So Rachel and Leah realized that Laban, their father, their biological father, was cheating Jacob, and he was not only cheating Jacob, he also cheated his daughters, right? Because they said, um, excuse me, they said after he sold us to you, he started to treat us like one of the foreign ladies. He didn't treat us like we were his daughters anymore. And all of the things that we could have possessed, he has taken them away. So that family line, that family tree, that bloodline, it was rather interesting. They really thought about themselves and how they can get away with things. And if you notice that also, Rachel and Leah kind of had the same mindset also, because they did that in their marriage, one to another. And they're sisters. So, I don't want to jump ahead, but Jacob really needed his deliverance. Because that bloodline, it was something else. All right. So, no one online is commenting right now, so we're going to move on. Nothing else? We don't see anything else in the first 20 verses? We're good? All right, we're good. So we're going to move on. All right. So now, okay, verse 22. 3 days later, Laban was told that Jacob had fled. So he gathered a group of his relatives and set out in hot pursuit. He caught up with Jacob 7 days later in the hill country of Gilead. But the previous night, God had appeared to Laban, the Aramean, in a dream and told him, I'm warning you, leave Jacob alone. Anybody want God on their side? We definitely want God on our side. Laban caught up with Jacob as he was camped in the hill country of Gilead, and he set up his camp not far from Jacob. What do you mean by deceiving me like this? Laban demanded. How dare you drag my daughters away like prisoners of war? Why did you slip away secretly? Why did you deceive me? And why didn't you say you wanted to leave? I would have given you a farewell feast with singing and music accompanied by tambourines and harps. Why didn't you let me kiss my daughters and grandchildren and tell them goodbye? You have acted very foolishly. I could destroy you, but the God of your father appeared to me last night and warned me, leave Jacob alone. I can't understand your feelings that you must go and in your intense longing for your father's home, but why have you stolen my gods? I rushed away because I was afraid, Jacob answered. I thought you would take your daughters from me by force. But as for your gods, see if you can find them, and let the person who has taken them die. And if you find anything else that belongs to you, identify it before all these relatives of yours, and I will give it back. But Jacob did not know that Rachel had stolen the household idols. Laban went first into Jacob's tent to search there, then into Leah's, and then the tents of the two servant wives, but he found nothing. Finally, he went into Rachel's tent. But Rachel had taken the household idols and hidden them in her camel's saddle, and now she was sitting on them. When Laban had thoroughly searched her tent without finding them, she said to her father, "Please, sir, forgive me if I don't get up for you. I'm having my monthly period." So Laban continued his search, but he could not find the household idols. Then Jacob became very angry, and he challenged Laban. "What's my crime?" he demanded. "What have I done wrong to make you chase after me as though I were a criminal? You have rummaged through everything I own. Now show me what you found that belongs to you. Set it out here in front of us before our relatives for all to see. Let them judge between us. For 20 years I have been with you caring for your flocks. In all that time your sheep and goats never miscarried. In all those years I never used a single ram of yours for food. If any were attacked if any were attacked and killed by wild animals, I never showed you the carcass and asked you to reduce the count of your flock. No, I took the loss myself. You made me pay for every stolen animal, whether it was taken in broad daylight or in the dark of night. I worked for you through the scorching heat of the day and through cold and sleepless nights. Yes, for 20 years I slaved in your house. I worked for 14 years earning your 2 daughters, and then 6 more years for your flock. And you changed my wages 10 times. Man, this is intense. In fact, if the God of my father had not been on my side, the God of Abraham and the fearsome God of Isaac, you would have sent me away empty-handed. But God has seen your abuse and my hard work. That is why he appeared to you last night and rebuked you. We're going to stop at 42. Oh, my goodness. So, what jumps out from verse 22 to 42? A lot happened. Go ahead.
As she took her father,
Right. Yes. So say that one more time for me.
I was saying that Rachel did not admit that she took her father's wife.
Yes.
That-
Absolutely. So good point, sis. That so one thing that transpired, Jacob left, right? And Laban followed hard after him 3 days after he left. And Laban didn't leave by himself, right? He took all of his relatives with him, or a good portion of them, not all. He took a group of his relatives with him, and he chased after Jacob. And he caught him 7 days later. Well, the 7 days after Jacob left, right? So he caught him in about 4 days, it seems like. Somebody typed in a family of deceivers. You're absolutely right. We're going to get to that point that Sister Lawson just said us also. So now he catch up to Jacob, and he's very upset with Jacob. And he's saying, "Why did you leave? You act like I wasn't good to you. I did all these great things for you. I couldn't kiss my kids goodbye. I couldn't kiss my grandkids goodbye. I would have threw you a feast." Now, do you really think that he was trying to put a feast for Jacob? Absolutely not. Because his intent was to kill him and get back his stuff. How do we know Laban's intent was to kill Jacob? How do we know that? There we go. We know that Laban had ill intent for Jacob, thank you, Sister Lawson, because God warned Laban in a dream, don't touch Jacob's life. So he was not going to have a party for him and sing a song and give him food and drinks and then let him go. That was not his intent. And then Laban said, "Okay, so God warned me, but why did you have to steal one of my idols?" And Jacob, now he was very wroth because Jacob's like, I am not an idol worshiper. I might be a deceiver. I might do some things that's not right, but I am not an idol worshiper. I wasn't raised that way, and I'm never gonna be an idol worshiper. All right? So Jacob said, that's where I draw the line. And so he says, if you find it in this tent, and among myself or anyone who who's with me, that person, you can deal with them harshly. He said you can kill him. That's how much he believed that it wasn't with him. So what did Laban do? He went and he checked. I found this interesting because I never realized this. The living quarters, and it makes sense now when you think about it, they all had their own individual tents, right? Because they were nomads. There was traveling, right? So obviously they didn't build a house. But Jacob had his tent. Rachel had her tent. Leah had a tent, and the servant wives, you heard how they call them, servant wives, had their own tents. Right? So it's not like they were all living under one big roof. So to me, that jumped out to me. I never really thought about that. I guess in my mind, I'm thinking 2025. Yeah, it's like having your own room. Absolutely. Absolutely. So in my mind, I didn't really picture it that way. So it's good when you read these things over and over again. You start to see things how it was, and you have to make sure you take out what we're seeing today, because you can't read this Old Testament scriptures thinking about your house with many rooms that we all are sharing or what have you, right? So to me that was kind of, I didn't realize that. And when he got to Rachel's room, or her tent, she did what they all do. What Rebecca, Jacob's mom, did, what Jacob did, what Laban does, and what Leah and Rachel did. They deceived, they lied, and they tricked people. She told her father, I can't get up and greet you because I'm having my menstrual cycle. Interesting. That family, that's a family, Sister Trisha, you're right. That's a family of deceivers. And that curse needs to break. That curse needs to break. All right, so let's continue. Let's continue. Any other questions, any other comments, any other thoughts? All right, so we're moving forward. So, verse 43. Then Laban replied to Jacob, these women are my daughters, these children are my grandchildren, and these flocks are my flocks. In fact, everything you see is mine. But what can I do now about my daughters and their children? So come, let's make a covenant, you and I, and it will be a witness to our commitment. So Jacob took a stone and set it up as a monument. Then he told his family members, gather some stones. So they gathered stones and piled them in a heap. Then Jacob and Laban sat down beside the piles of stones to eat a covenant meal. To commemorate the event, Laban called the place, to commemorate the event. Laban called the place, good luck on this one, Jagar Sahudatha, which means witness pile in Aramaic. And Jacob called it Galid, which means witness pile in Hebrew. Then Laban declared, this pile of stones will stand as a witness to remind us of the covenant we have made today. This explains why it was called Galid, witness pile, but it was also called Mizpah, which means watchtower. For Laban said, may the Lord keep watch between us to make sure that we keep this covenant when we are out of each other's sight. If you mistreat my daughter, or if you marry otherwise, God will see it even if no one else does. He is a witness to this covenant between us. So this pile of stones, Laban continued, and see this pile of stone, Laban continued, and see this monument I have set between us. They stand between us as witness of our vows. I will never pass this pile of stones to harm you, and you must never pass these stones or this monument to harm me. I call on the God of our ancestors, the God of your grandfather Abraham, and the God of my grandfather Nahor, to serve as a judge between us. So Jacob took an oath before the fearsome God of his father Isaac to respect the boundary line. Then Jacob offered a sacrifice to God there on the mountain and invited everyone to a covenant feast. After they had eaten, they spent the night on the mountain. Laban got up early the next morning, and he kissed his grandchildren and his daughters and blessed them. Then he left and returned home. All right. So this remaining verses from 43 to the end, it just speaks about how they made a covenant one with another so that they would not harm each other at all. So anytime their paths would have crossed, then none of them would take vengeance on each other, right? So they left in peace. What jumped out to me was that Laban spoke Aramaic and Jacob spoke Hebrew. So I'm assuming that they knew both languages, right? So they can communicate with each other. But when they called the place where they were, Laban said it in the Aramaic tongue, and Jacob said it in the Hebrew tongue. So I just found that interesting, and that for me never jumped out at me before. But I just thought that was interesting. Anything else you see before we move on to the next chapter? Right, that part is pretty self-explanatory, right? Yeah. So don't forget, those who are online, if you want to comment, you can definitely comment. But we're going to move on. All right, now it's going to get a little bit interesting. As Jacob started on his way again, angels of God came to meet him. When Jacob saw them, he exclaimed, "This is God's camp." So he named the place Mahanaim. Then Jacob sent messengers ahead to his brother Esau, who was living in the region of Seir in the land of Edom. He told them, "Give this message to my master Esau. Humble greetings from your servant Jacob. Until now I have been living with Uncle Laban. And now I own cattle, donkeys, flocks of sheep and goats, and many servants, both men and women. I have sent these messengers to inform my lord of my coming, hoping that you will be friendly to me." After delivering the message, the messenger returned to Jacob and reported, "We met your brother Esau, and he is already on his way to meet you with an army of 400 men." Jacob was terrified at the news. He divided his household, along with the flocks and herds and camels, into two groups. He thought if Esau meets one group and attacks it, perhaps the other group can escape. Then Jacob prayed, "O God of my grandfather Abraham and God of my father Isaac, O Lord, you told me, return to your own land and to your relatives, and you promised me I will treat you kindly. I am not worthy of all the unfailing love and faithfulness you have shown to me, your servant. When I left home, I crossed the Jordan River. I owned nothing except a walking stick. Now my household fills two large camps. O Lord, please rescue me from the hand of my brother Esau. I am afraid that he is coming to attack me, along with my wives and children. But you promised me I will surely treat you kindly, and I will multiply your descendants until they become as numerous as the sands along the seashore, too many to count." Jacob stayed where he was for the night. Then he selected these gifts from his possessions to present to his brother Esau: 200 female goats, 20 male goats, 200 ewes, 20 rams, 30 female camels with their young, 40 cows, 10 bulls, 20 female donkeys, and 10 male donkeys. He divided these animals into herds and assigned each to different servants. Then he told his servants, "Go ahead of me with the animals, but keep some distance between the herd." Let's stop at verse 16. All right. So what do we see happening here? Yes.
Even though, to me, Jacob was fair. He had fear when he heard about Esau. And what stands out to me, he turned to God.
Nice.
Seek God.
Nice.
So, he knew that God will deliver him. And then he reminded God of what he said.
Very good. That's good. That's good. So, Genesis 32, we're reading from. So, that is very good. That is very good. So, I like what you said that Jacob was fearful. Jacob was fearful. He when he realized, and he sent the messengers ahead of him to go to Esau, the messengers came back and said, "Oh, yeah, we met Esau. We told Esau, and Esau's coming to meet you with 400 men." Fear just took a hold of Jacob. And why would Jacob be afraid at this time? That's his brother. Why was he afraid? Jacob know what he did. And we all know what Jacob did, right? He stole the birthright, and he stole the blessing, right? The promised blessing that should have been for Esau. He stole that, and then he head for the hills. He took off. So now he's coming back home, and he knows that he got to meet his brother. So when he heard that he was coming with 400 men, fear took his heart. So immediately, the first thing that Jacob did in his mind, he devised a plan. He devised a plan, but before he did that, he says, "I better get on my knees and pray. I'm going to seek the face of God." Somebody said, at least he knew to pray to God. Same thing Sister Lawson said, absolutely. So he dropped on his knees, or however way he got before the Lord, and he said, "God, you promised that you told me to go back home and you would keep me safe. And now Esau's coming with 400 men." And now hear this elaborate plan that Jacob had, right? This is insane. And Jacob said he was rich, right? But now we know for sure Jacob was rich. He spread out his goods. 200 female goats, 20 male goats, 200 ewes, 20 rams, 30 female camels with their youngs, 40 cows, 10 bulls, 20 female donkeys, and 10 male donkeys. That's a lot of stock. And if you notice, there was more female than male. Why do you think that is? Stupid question, but why? The male will always give their seed to the females. So if you had more females, they all go in heat at different times. So your flock will grow, right? So if he gave 20 male goats and 20 male females, then you're limited on how much livestock they can reproduce. But if you give 200 female goats and 20 male goats, right? As the females are in heat, the male is always ready to give off his seed, and your stock will grow quicker, or bigger, right? More. So it's like he gave a percentage. of what he had, like a tenth of male to the females. And it made sense to make it so whoever will have them, their stock will grow quickly. Um, so that was actually smart what he did. That was actually smart. But that's not the, well, we'll find out what plan God had. We're taking it step by step, right? All right, so, all right, let's go. So we read up to chapter 6, verse 16. Nothing else stands out. So he was fearful. He got on his knees and he prayed, and then he gave, and then he split up his goods, and he said, this is my plan. He gave these instructions, verse 17, to the men, leading the first group. When my brother Esau meets you, he will ask, whose servants are you? Where are you going? Who own these animals? You must reply, they belong to your servant Jacob, but they are a gift for his master Esau. Look, he is coming right behind us. Still doing his tricky thing, right? Jacob gave the same instructions to the second and third herdsmen and to all who follow behind the herds. You must say the same thing to Esau when you meet him, and be sure to say, look, your servant Jacob is right behind us. Jacob thought, I will try to appease him by sending gifts ahead of me. When I see him in person, perhaps he will be friendly to me. So the gifts were sent on ahead, while Jacob himself spent the night in camp. Interesting. During the night, Jacob got up and took his 2 wives, his 2 servants' wives, and his 11 sons, and crossed the Jabbok River with them. After taking them to the other side, he sent over all his possessions. This left Jacob all alone in the camp. And a man came and wrestled. Well, let's stop there before we go to that part. So Jacob got rid of pretty much of all of his possessions. And he sent his family also. And he didn't go. He stood back. And you would think that as the protector, as the head of the house, he would stay there to try to defend his family. What did Sister Tricia say? A family of deceivers or tricksters. Don't forget that. A family of deceivers. My goodness. All right, let's go. All right. So 22. So during the night, Jacob got up and took his 2 wives. We read that, but I'll read it again. His 2 servants' wives and his 11 sons, and crossed the Jabbok River with them. After taking them to the other side, he sent over all his possessions. This left Jacob all alone in the camp, and a man came and wrestled with him until the dawn beginning to break. When the man saw that he would not win the match, he touched Jacob's hip and wrenched it out of its socket. Then the man said, let me go, for the dawn is breaking. But Jacob said, I will not let you go unless you bless me. What is your name? The man asked. He replied, Jacob. Your name will no longer be Jacob, the man told him. From now on, you will be called Israel, because you have fought with God and with men and have won. Please tell me your name, Jacob said. Why do you want to know my name? The man replied. Then he blessed Jacob there. Jacob named the place Peniel, which means face of God. For he said, I have seen God face to face, yet my life has been spared. The sun was rising as Jacob left Peniel, and he was limping because of the injury to his hip. Even today, the people of Israel don't eat the tendon near the hip socket because of what happened that night when the man strained the tendon of Jacob's hip. All right, so now, if I was preaching, this would be the part where the whole church would get excited, because we'll talk about the name change, right? But because we're not preaching and we're talking and we're just trying to read this to see what was happening at that time, let's play with this for a few minutes, all right, before we close out tonight. What has been the theme of Jacob's life from his birth to this scene? What has been the theme of Jacob's life? Trickery, right? Thank you very much. Being a deceiver. From his birth, his brother came out, his hand came out first. Now, the Bible don't say Jacob. Well, did it say Jacob pulled it back in? It says, right? So Jacob pulled him back in. I don't know how babies did that, but whatever. And he tried to come out. He tried to come out. Jacob was always trying to get one up on somebody from birth. When they got a little bit older, Esau was hungry, felt like he was about to die. And Esau said, hey, let me get some of your food. Jacob said, you want my food? Sell me your birthright. And Esau was like, I don't care about this. If I die, my birthright's not going to do me any good. So he sold it to him. Paula King, yes, you're absolutely right. Jacob's theme has been deception. Very good. And so he deceived his brother for the birthright. Brother wasn't too smart either. Then, years later, his mother helped him deceive the father to get the blessing that should have gone to Esau. I mean, this was an elaborate plan, this one. She put goat fur on him so he could smell like Esau and he could feel hairy. She cooked the food that the father wanted. All of that. They went to great lengths to deceive people. Now he gets to his uncle Laban, and his uncle do the same thing that Jacob, that's in their bloodline. He deceived Jacob for 20 years. Now he's going to visit Esau. And he starts with trying to win him over. And he kind of deceived his family because he sent them first when he should have been the one going first. And pretty much he thought that if anything is going to touch Esau's heart, that he see my children, I'm giving him livestock, I'm giving him all these things, and if he gets mad and take them and kill them, I get to run away. Not fully believing what God said. He believed, but his faith was, I'm still a little bit shaky on this one. Now he wrestles with a man. And the King James talk about an angel, right? And that's what it was. We all know that it was an angel. God sent this angel and to bless Jacob. And I'm going to say that Jacob had to wrestle because his life was full of turmoil. And sometimes you gotta put your back into the blessing that you're going to receive. Sometimes you're going to have to, even though it's a blessing that God has given you, sometimes you're going to have to fight for it. And when I say fight within. Because there are some things that has to be changed, that has to, not change, because we said before that when something's changed, you could always go back to it. So for that transformation to happen in Jacob's life, or in your life, in my life, sometimes you got to wrestle within yourself to get that transformation process. And just like how a caterpillar, when it wraps up itself in a cocoon, it has to go through a metamorphosis, a process of transformation. And when that's happening, I promise you, if you could hear that caterpillar say, ouch, you will. Because he's dropping off his legs. That caterpillar is growing wings inside of that cocoon before it turns to a butterfly. When we as human beings go through our development stage in life, where we're getting older, they say that you have body growing pains. We go through growing pains. Your joints hurt as you're growing sometimes. All type of things happen to you. When your feet is growing, sometimes your feet hurt, or your skin is being stretched, or whatever is happening. When you're going through puberty, there's changes that happen to your body, and sometimes it hurts. So those are growing pains. So just like the caterpillar go through its metamorphosis, it's painful. And just like how when we are being transformed, like how Jacob was being transformed to receive his blessings, sometimes it's painful to receive, because you're got to get rid of some things that you hold on to dear. I'm trying not to get preachy, so I wouldn't. I'm trying to maintain my composure, right? Right? So sometimes what I'm gleaming from this right here and right now is that Jacob needed a transformation in his life. And God blessed him with that transformation. It wasn't a change, because if some things change, we know you could always revert back to it. But when something is transformed, it could never go back to what it was. Jacob could never go back to being a deceiver again, because his life was transformed. And what proved that his life was transformed? His name changed. Okay. Then there's a question. What was significance of Jacob's name change? Well, I just said it before I read the question. His name changed. The name changing from Jacob, which we all know is a trickster or a deceiver, now he changed to Israel, a prince of God. So he now cannot be that person anymore. He went through that metamorphosis transformation process, and he became a brand new man. So when God pronounces a blessing on you, sometimes you might have to go through a transformation process to receive what God has for you. And sometimes it might be a little bit painful, but it's worth it at the end. Jacob walked away for the rest of his life walking with a limp, but he was never the same. So not every blessing that we get from God is painless, but it's always worth it. It's always worth it. So while we're going through some things in our lives, as we'll close, because I'm not going to read another chapter, as we're going through some things in our lives, please be reminded, the blessing of God make it rich and added no sorrow. David, I don't know why I said David twice today. Jacob's blessing made him rich, and even though he walked with a limp, it added no sorrow. Because when we come back in 2 weeks, because next week is Hour of Power, when we come back the following Wednesday, we're going to see what happens after his name changed. See, because we didn't get there yet. Something happened in chapter 33 that proved that God was and is with Jacob. Israel. Right? Something happened in chapter 33 that's going to let us know that the blessing and the transformation that he went through was true and worth it, and God was with him. Amen? So as we close, please be reminded. Somebody said a renewed mind. How does Jacob, 1 second before we close, how does Jacob experience at Peniel affect his relationship with Esau? I'm sorry, I can't answer that question right now because that's going to take away chapter 33. So come back in 2 weeks and we're going to answer that question, how that experience in Peniel affected his relationship with Esau. And we're going to trust that it changed, it affected it in a positive way. But we'll find out in 2 weeks. So please, be reminded and be encouraged. Every blessing that God has for us, it is for us. We're going to receive it. Some things we might have to go through a little transformation process. But guess what? It will be worth it. Every ouch and every ache and every pain that you feel as you go through this transformation process, it will be so worth it, because chapter 33 is going to tell us that when we come back in 2 weeks. I want to thank you for participating with us. Thank you for the questions. Thank you for the answers. Thank you for commenting. Thank God for those who are in-house. And thank you again for those who are watching online. May God continue to bless you and be with us. And please be reminded, we don't want to change. We want to transform. God bless you. Have a great rest of your week in Jesus' name.